crazy current events are happening in our world? That's the topic of today's discussion of the podcast. We're going to talk about living your best life. We're going to talk about conflicts in the world, and we're going to talk about some major changes that could be coming up for you and yours. Hello, my lovelies. So, you guys will notice that some things have changed, especially with the podcast. So, we went from the Black Sheep Society podcast to Be the Change to we're just going to call it Karma Walking. Why? Why not? Okay. So, I feel like there's lots of changes energetically that are coming through for the whole collective, everybody who can view my channel. And some of that happens to be like redefining who we are. So, one of the topics that we're going to discuss in the podcast is current events. It's something that I feel like there's always some sort of buzz going on somewhere around the world, right? And a lot of times there's a lot of buzz of things going on around the world. So, today we are going to discuss following your dreams, like kind of perpetually, like what are you being called to do? And then we're going to discuss some other world current events. So, the first one that we're going to discuss is someone that I came across on my TikTok. And so if you guys don't have TikTok, wherever you watch this from, this is somebody that was just an average Joe up until recently. This person had worked like a corporate job or like regular, customer service, retail type jobs, and decided that they just couldn't stomach it anymore. And so their story is pretty incredible. So the account that I'm talking about is called Sailing with Phoenix. And so this guy, I can't remember his first name, he literally quit his job and he decided that he was going to buy a sailboat and that he was going to like just go figure out how to do this and go live life. So he's currently in the process of sailing from Oregon to Hawaii, I believe. And so it's just him and his cat. I believe his cat is the one that's called Phoenix, and it's just the two of them. And so they're trying to like figure out what they're doing, right? He's never like done sailboating. He's not like an expert navigator or anything like that. He's figuring out the mechanics of his ship. He's figuring out how to, navigate through the seas. He's already been potentially in like crazy storms, and there's yet more to come, I'm sure, as he sails through this. It may take him a couple of months to reach his final destination in Hawaii, but how incredibly brave, right? That was the first thing that I thought was, that's fucking awesome. This guy literally threw his job away that he had been at for however long, and literally one day just made the decision like, I'm done. I don't care. I got to do something for me and I've got to change something. All right, so why am I talking about this? Well, I've done something similar in my life, and I think a lot of people have. Maybe not quite to that degree of like selling everything you own and buying a sailboat and going across the world. So here's the backstory. It says 6 months ago, I liquidated my 401k, abruptly quit my career of 11 years, and completely eviscerated my retirement plans. Sold everything I owned except for my cat and bought a sailboat. I paid cash for a sailboat that I live on full time. And now, I want you to see these pictures. And now, I love my life. So I feel like he's really just, he's absolutely out there living his dream. And so I actually messaged him yesterday and said, Hi, my name is Jenna. I have a podcast. I would love to have you on so we can discuss your experience, because I think a lot of people, it would be kind of eye-opening. Why do we feel like we have to stay at a dead-end 9 to 5 job? Why do we feel like if we're in a place in our life that doesn't feel like it fits for us, why do we feel the need to stay there? Is it obligation? Is it duties and responsibilities? Do we, fear the, falling on our face and having to pick up the pieces? Do we really feel that we fear failure? Try saying that 5 times fast. But I feel like that's really what it boils down to for a lot of us, is we just fear the failure, right? So a really great saying that came to mind when I first saw this was, what would you set out to do today if you knew you could not fail? Wow, isn't that eye-opening? Wouldn't that change your entire life? If you knew you couldn't fail, if you knew that success was the only option, the only alternative was that success was what was going to find you, what would you put your mind to today? What would you try? What new task, what new adventure would you go on? Because I feel like there's a lot of us that are in kind of a rut, right? Myself included sometimes. That's kind of why the podcast came about. Yeah, I read cards all the time. I've read them for over 20 years. It's something that I still love to do. Yes, I'm a medium and I love to connect for other people, but I don't do a ton of those readings privately or anything anymore. I would love to. I'm a writer. I have two published books. I'm an author. I'm always kind of thinking of maybe another project that I want to start. But those take time, right? They take energy. And I'm a spoonie. I have a chronic illness, so I don't always have the energy to just, put on my face and come on camera and do all these things. So I have to navigate how I'm going to accomplish my next goal. And it's always a little bit more challenging the older I get because there's always that fear attached to it, right? So, how do we release the fear to chase our dreams? Sometimes I feel like God will put us in a position where we're kind of faced with you're going to jump off this cliff and see what happens because there isn't a safety net and you just have to. Like, let's say there's a pack of wolves that are chasing you, right? And you come to the edge of the cliff. Well, if you look backwards, the wolves are eventually going to catch you. And if you look down, you're inevitably going to fall, right? So, what do? You've got to figure out a plan in order to escape sometimes. And I feel like that's exactly what this guy did was he didn't really have a plan. He just said, I can't do this anymore and there's got to be something else out there. He's literally living a dream. He says that he is escaping the American dream, which is, buy a house, start a family, get married, settle down, have the 2 point whatever kids and the dog and the cat and whatever else, and just live life. But that's not everybody's dream. Some people want to be like rich and famous. I want the rich part, not necessarily the famous part, but I definitely would like the money part of it because let's face it, money would solve 99% of most of our problems, right? So if you're already happy and fulfilled in here, the money's a bonus, It's not like the only thing you have to achieve. And so I feel like there's a lot of us out there in the world that really want to feel alive again. And I feel like that's exactly what he's doing. Again, it's just him and his cat on this sailboat, and they're literally going into uncharted territory. They've never done this before. So, yeah, he could crash and burn. Yeah, he might, run into some issues or some problems. But if it's something that you really want, where there's a will, there's a way. So that's our first topic of discussion today. All right, so topic number two, there's been a new pope announced, right? You heard that Pope Francis, I believe was his name. I'm not Catholic, so don't shoot the messenger, but that he had passed away. I have hiccups, sorry guys. That he passed away recently within the last 2 weeks, and so they elect somebody new. Now, I will tell you that this new pope is American. And to my knowledge, he's the very first American, even though, there's lots and lots of Catholics in the United States of America. This is kind of a big deal because normally they would elect somebody that is either Italian, I believe, Latin of some sort, and I feel like it's kind of a big deal that this Pope is American. Right. So this new Pope is going to lead 1.4 billion Catholics. His name is Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost and the first American-born Pope. So he's 69 years old. He's originally from Chicago and has chosen the name Leo XIV. I don't know what that stands for. Roman numerals are not my friend. He was most recently the head of the dicastery responsible for the appointment of bishops and the Archbishop Emeritus of Chiclayo, Peru. Yeah, I definitely can't say all those names very easily. So he's very excited, he says in the article, to be part of this, and that he really hopes to go forward and make the church great. So this is him. I don't have another way to put these little clips in, so we're just going to read current events this way this time. So not that I ever do this, but have you ever just Googled world current events or the current events? So we've already covered the Pope, Cardinal Robert Prevost, elected as the Pope Leo, becoming the first American Pope. So we have U.S. air traffic control. So our president, President Trump, has like, they're slashing spending and budgets everywhere. Like literally, if it's at a federal level, it's under scrutiny right now. And so if you watch me from anywhere outside of the United States, you may not know what's going on. So we've had a lot of plane crashes since like the end of 2024, and way more than normal. So it's not normal, all these things that are going on. I have my own 2 cents on what I think happened. So I will share that with you because we're in the podcast. We're going to say what we want. So part of what I think is going on, and again, this is my own 2 cents. I'm not an anti vaxxer. I have had all of my vaccines, I've had extras over the years. Okay, so I'm not anti vax. All of my children have had all the normal childhood vaccines, currently up to date on all their stuff. We did not get the COVID vaccines in any way, shape, or form. Why? I was hesitant because it was untested medical stuff, right? And I didn't want my kids or my family to be the guinea pig for the testing. I personally think that if you got it and survived it, and yes, I know a lot of people got it and did not, that you build up what's called natural immunity or herd immunity. And that's something that through all illnesses throughout history, a lot of us were exposed to these pathogens, diseases, infections, and you had to either fight it off or you didn't make it, right? And so it's kind of like the laws of nature. So I realized that there are a lot of people that lost friends, family, and loved ones throughout the last several years. I get that wholeheartedly. I'm not trying to discount that in any way, shape, or form. However, I'm a very clean person and I keep my home very clean. So during the height of COVID, um, we kind of like went a little extra and we were really, really cautious about like just germs in general, especially common areas, right? So kitchens, bathrooms, household items that everybody touches, doorknobs, light switches, things like that. So those got cleaned very, very thoroughly, regularly. Okay, so when I come in from outside, and this is just a habit of mine, I constantly wash my hands. So that's something that I've always done. I hate my hands feeling dirty or sticky or anything like that, so I always wash my hands. The other part of that is just like, proper hygiene, making sure that if you are ill, you stay home and you rest and things like that, and that you're like eliminating germs when you cough or sneeze. And then if you cough or sneeze, you go wash your hands, you go clean everything, right? Okay, so common sense used to be common, it's not so common anymore. We didn't get COVID initially. It was like a year later in 2021, my entire household got it. No, we didn't go get tested. No, we didn't have an actual diagnosis. Based on our symptoms, we knew we probably had it. Ours was different from the first round that everybody else got. We got like the no energy. I lost my taste for a little while, like probably 2 weeks. I couldn't taste things like I used to. And I had really bad fatigue, worse than I've ever had it in my life. And my bones hurt, like deep, deep in my body, my bones hurt. I was so lethargic and so exhausted, I literally couldn't get up and do much of anything. So for weeks, I literally feel like I slept. I would get up long enough to eat a little something, take some ibuprofen to keep my fever and my body aches in check, and I literally slept for weeks. And so I, at that point, couldn't tolerate certain foods. I couldn't drink coffee, and I loved coffee. Couldn't drink it. It tasted like chemicals to me. It was horrible. And so meat was the same thing. It just tasted disgusting, and so I couldn't tolerate certain foods for a while. I can drink coffee again, I can eat meat again, but it took months before I could actually tolerate certain things. They just tasted awful to me. So, back to the point. What I think is happening in some cases, and there is some evidence out there to back these things up, is that the pilots for commercial airlines were required to get the COVID vaccines. At least 2 doses, I think, was the requirement. Now, there are some studies that have happened because we know that these commercial airlines pilots have had to have regular checkups and evaluations to make sure that they're fit in order to fly these planes, right? Because they're flying thousands upon thousands of people every single year all over the globe. And It's you and like a co-pilot, right? So it's kind of a big deal. Plus, you're up in the air, and what goes up must come down, and we don't want it to crash, right? So they're starting to find out that some of these pilots, and I would say more than not, were having cardiac issues, meaning that there is something going on within their heart that is causing arrhythmias and sudden cardiac arrest. So heart attacks, things like that. They're also finding a lot of blood clots in these pilots. So what's causing that? What is the common denominator in all of these situations? The COVID vaccine. So they are starting to have like some class action lawsuits that I've seen for people who have been injured by these vaccines. So if you're interested in that, there's definitely a lot of information out there to be had if you would like to read further into it. So I do feel like some of these shortages are because the pilots have been injured and cannot fly. Okay, so there's a shortage there. And then we have President Trump that's like slashing budgets everywhere. So a lot of people got laid off. A lot of people have quit over the last several years. So we're in a deficit of the amount of people, personnel that fly planes, air traffic control, things like that. So we're starting to see a lot of problems. One area in particular is the Newark Airport in Newark, New Jersey, I believe is the location. And there was a post that I saw that said, avoid this airport at all costs because they don't have enough personnel to safely operate air traffic control there. So we've seen there was a crash near the Hudson River. It was a helicopter crash recently. I believe 5 or 6 people passed. We've seen, I want to say like half dozen or more plane crashes, helicopter crashes all over the United States. And it's like, so what in the hell is going on? Why are all of a sudden we starting to see such an uptick in helicopters and plane crashes? And it's not necessarily like military, it's commercial airlines, it's private planes, it's things like that, that what is happening? You know, it's like it really does start to make you wonder. So, U.S. air traffic control. The U.S. Department of Transportation is developing a new air traffic control system after decades of problems, right? So, there's always kinks. Think about when your computer updates, right? The software updates or whatever. There's always glitches that have to be worked out at a later date. Well, we don't always have time for that glitch to be resolved, right? Because people's lives are quite literally at stake in the air and on the ground. Can you imagine a 757, like, you know, giant ass plane all of a sudden falling to the earth, right? What's in its path below it? It happens. We do see plane crashes, but currently we're starting to see way more than we ever have. All right, so U.S. policies. The Librarian of Congress was fired, and the FBI launched a criminal probe into the New York Attorney General, Letitia James. So, you know, like he's cleaning house, and I'm not going to say it's all bad because I do feel like because we're in the age of Aquarius, all these things that were hidden are going to start to be revealed, right? So we're going to start to see like a paper trail where all the spending has gone. Where have all of these things kind of taken us, good or bad? We're going to start to see exactly what it is and make adjustments accordingly. So sometimes people have to go. Yeah, it kind of sucks sometimes in the interim, but we've got to get to the better place. How do we get there? Sometimes it creates a little chaos and turmoil before things actually fall into place and get resolved. So the US and UK trade, a trade deal between the US and the UK has reduced tariffs on some goods. So that's a positive, right? All right, global chip curbs. The Trump administration is considering rescinding and replacing Biden era global AI chip export curbs. So there's lots of like things that I know Trump is trying to get rid of that Biden had put into place. Some are good, some are bad, depends on what your viewpoint is, you know. I feel like again in one of my other podcast episodes, I channeled a message about all the different things that are going to be affected, right? So we're already starting to see it in the ports. And if you see, I posted that podcast like a couple of weeks ago. So we're already starting to see that in certain ports, we're having a lack of deliveries, right? Why? Well, because people don't want to pay these higher tariffs. Like, let's be real here. That was Trump's goal, right? He wants things to be made in the United States, or he wants people to have, like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, so that it's more equal instead of all of us always paying the higher price for everything. We want to have fair and equal opportunities. He wants to bring jobs back to the United States. That's a great thing, right? There's lots of people that are financially struggling here. So I understand the concept, but it's about to hurt the regular people really in a big way, unfortunately. So I hope that things start to de escalate and we start to find, resolutions to these things quickly, because the American people and really globally, everybody's going to be affected by this in some way, shape, or form, right? So people in China that, export goods and that's their business, they export them to wherever around the globe. Well, maybe people aren't buying as many of those things. So that hurts their bottom line too. We're all fucking human at the end of the day, right? Does it matter where you come from? No. Does it matter, all these stupid laws that the rest of us have to follow? No. But we have to deal with some of these things. So it starts to affect the regular little guy. And that's the problem with trickle down some of these things. All right, so international affairs, what's going on in the Middle East? There are ongoing events in Gaza, including Israeli strikes and a U.S. proposal for a ceasefire. So, wouldn't we love to see peace like globally in our lifetime? I sure would. In my entire life, all I ever remember hearing about in the Middle East was war. Literally, war. War over land, war over religion, war over oil, war over resources. It's like, can we ever figure it out? I mean, there's so many things in the world, and not just in the Middle East, but literally globally. There's so many things around the world where it's like, it's been thousands, kid you not, thousands of years in some of these places where it's just war and turmoil, just killing. It's like, can we grow the fuck up and stop all this madness already? Like, literally, what will it take before the powers that be realize that this doesn't fucking work? Like, what we've been doing for millennia does not work. The people are dying. The people cannot live. What is it going to take before they give a shit? I don't think the powers that be, the elites, ever will, right? Because war is a moneymaker, let's face it. So there's money to be made if there's battles going on, right? And then there's money to be made when there's rebuilding. So it's a cash cow. So that's why it's a perpetual cycle that never fucking ends. I hope in my lifetime that we see peace, literally, globally. I hope that we don't ever hear about wars anymore. I hope that people get to thrive. I hope that we finally get to see what it's like to live in a peaceful, happy, thriving environment. So that is my hope for what goes forward. All right, so the Gaza ceasefire. Israel has paused military activity along a main road in Gaza to facilitate aid, so that's a plus. India and Pakistan, that's another one that I was like, oh boy, okay. So India has conducted strikes on Pakistan, and there are reports of multiple attacks along the western border. So, I live near a military base. I live near several where I live in Colorado. And we see equipment being hauled out of here all the time. Sometimes we have months and months where it's really quiet, there's nothing much going on. And other times there are shipments and shipments and shipments of military vehicles that are moving in and out. So we don't ever know where they're going, right? But you can see it. So we know that we're helping certain countries go to war. We know that, right? Because we can see it. I always hope that everybody comes home completely unscathed. I always hope that things will be resolved in a quick time and that the loss of life will be extremely minimal or none at all. But unfortunately, we live in a time that there's lots of conflicts around the world. We're also approaching a certain time that hasn't happened in like 250-ish years that we saw before we had the American Revolution, where we won our independence from Great Britain or England, and that we had to go to war to do that, right? But it created the country that we know. And so we've been kind of, running circles for the last 200 and plus years, and sometimes things need to change. Well, A lot of times people get stuck in a rut, right? That's what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. And so we just kind of spin on our wheels. We're just going round and round and things don't really change. Well, we as as a society have changed, right? And so um it's like the laws and the things that we need to follow in society need to kind of change with us. And so that's the stuff that we're not really seeing happen. That's what needs to happen is we need to have laws and things change to reflect us as a people in society. And so globally, I feel like that's something that's also going to be happening is everybody's kind of sick of the status quo. Everybody's kind of sick of just barely scraping by. Everybody is like, no, this can't continue. It has to change because the people of the world are struggling and we can't live this way forever. Like it's barely in existence for some of us at this point. So it's critical that we start to make some changes that reflect who we are as people. And that's why we're starting to see so much conflict and turmoil all over the world. It's financial, it's, medicine, it's, cost of living. It's literally everything is starting to just like, we can't do this anymore. So something has got to give, right? Something has to change because we can't keep up at this pace any longer. All right. And then we have North Korea. So Kim Jong un is leading a missile test and stressing the readiness of North Korea's nuclear forces. You know, I swear it's like he has, in my own personal opinion, do you know what Napoleon complex is? It's little man syndrome. He is like the little kid on the playground that wants everybody to look at him, and he's not getting enough attention, so he causes problems, right? He threatens people. Well, I'm gonna nuke you. You don't want to deal with me? Well, I'm gonna nuke you. Well, you don't want to be my friend? I'm gonna nuke you. Like he's a little bully. And I don't understand some of this mentality. Trump has even like sent out the feelers years before and said, if you're willing to play nice and stop threatening people, we'll help you. We'll help you build your country. We'll help you become honest and awesome like we are. He's flat out sent out like, ambassadors and stuff. I think one was Dennis Rodman of all people, to go and have like a sit down with him. So it's like, now what? Now what's happening? What are you doing? Because I don't think Trump is going to play nice with a lot of countries' leaders at this point. I feel like he's in a position now where these people are going to call his bluff, number one. And so if they're not on his side, I feel like they may become mortal enemies and to the point where things could escalate greatly. And that's my own 2 cents on this. All of the stuff in the podcast is usually my own 2 cents. So know that going forward. So I feel like things could escalate before they get better. Sometimes they have to, right? It's like, um, you know, old school when you used to duke it out on the playground, right? Meet me at the flagpole at 3 o'clock. You're mine. I'm gonna tag your ass. Whatever. Okay, so now all of these players in the game are challenging each other one by one, right? So what happens if one of these countries' bluff is called and then Trump has to react? Or another country, right? If Trump calls their bluff, then what? Then what happens? We're just the little minions down here, right? We don't have a lot of say in what's going to happen. What happens if one of these foreign entities drops a nuke on somebody? That's pretty big time shit. It's like there's so many things going on around the world, and I feel like I can't watch the news anymore. I don't. I haven't in years. Why? Because there's nothing good coming out of it. I'll tell you that right now. I used to sit and have the TV on all day long on like the Today Show or a news station or whatever, right? And it was just kind of playing in the background. And I realized, especially after all the COVID stuff went down, I realized that all it did was make me a worried, angry person. And that's not who I want to be. So I can get my news and I can just read an article and it doesn't hurt me in any way, shape, or form. Or I can inundate myself with news programs that I feel like the narrative is really one sided one way or the other, because let's face it, that's the whole game, right? They're all owned by one entity typically, and literally they are being spoon fed what to say, like they have a script. And there's actually been documentation of this where you go to watch different news stations at the same time, and word for word, they are scripted. So it just makes you start to see things in a totally new light. So, anyways, I feel like things are definitely going to get worse before they get better. But literally, what happens if one of these countries around the world, and the United States included, gets backed into a corner and decides that they're just going to retaliate? How do we know that's not a possibility? We know as regular normal people that if we nuke somebody, it's global fallout, right? It's not just going to stay in that one area. We know that. So that presents a huge problem. It's not just going to affect the target audience, right? It's going to affect everybody. It pollutes our air, it pollutes our land, it pollutes our water. Those are things that we need in order to survive, right? So, how do we resolve these things? How do we find peace? And how do we de escalate the situation to avoid war and conflict? Because globally, it's kind of everywhere right now. And it starts to become more of like, oh, it's not just, a them problem. Well, now it's a me problem because some of these things might affect me and mine and you and yours. So if we started to really look at the situation like we're all human, we all belong to the same human race, we all deserve to have clean air and clean water and a place to live and food to eat, right? Those are basic human needs. When are we going to wake the fuck up and realize that all of these people that are in power are doing all of us humans a disservice? And we need people in there that can actually create positive change so that the rest of the world doesn't have to suffer. All right, so in other news, we have some disasters. A major fire in Kuwait has killed dozens of people. There's not any other news on that, just says that a major fire in Kuwait has killed dozens. So I don't know the backstory. I don't know if it was like an oil field or if it was something else that happened. Secret anti-vax campaign. The Pentagon ran a secret anti-vax campaign to undermine China during the pandemic. Interesting. Pope Francis repeated a gay slur in a closed door meeting, according to a report. I don't know how well this new pope is going to be received. A, because he's American, okay? And most of the world fucking hates us right now. Let's be real here. So if you're an American watching, hi. If you're from a foreign country watching, hi. We don't care where you're watching from. We love you guys. All right. So, I feel like there's going to be a lot of like drama surrounding this new pope. Why? Why do I feel that way? Okay, so the last pope really kind of broke a lot of protocol. He really was trying to be way more inclusive, especially with like homosexuals and transgender people. And that was something that the Catholic Church had never done, right? Those were people that were kind of outcast from the Catholic Church. Those were people that were shunned a lot of times. And so I feel like this pope may ruffle some feathers and try and kind of like undo some of that. I really strongly think that this pope is going to be a little bit more like old school ways of doing things, a little bit more not so like new age. I really feel like he's going to be more by the book, more strict than the last pope was. And I'm not Catholic, so I don't know enough about it, but I do feel like he's kind of a rogue. I really do. I just, from the little bits of stuff that I pick up energetically off of him, he's gonna dismantle some things. So be prepared for some uproar, especially if you're Catholic. You're gonna start to see some waves being created as soon as he's got enough power to do so. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, U.S. tourist deaths. An American tourist was found dead on a Greek island, and 3 people remain missing. There was also another thing that I saw that had to do with they think there's a potential serial killer in, I want to say, like the northeast part of the United States. Let me find that article. All right, so I found the article. So the New York Post, this was written May 5th, 2025. It says, is there a New England serial killer? Former FBI agent reveals his theory. In New England, authorities are not sharing enough information to squash speculation about a serial killer following the recent discoveries of 12 sets of human remains between March and April. According to FBI instructor and certified police instructor Scott Duffy, the discoveries of 12 human remains in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts between March and April, with few details from police as to how the 12 victims died, have prompted rumors of a serial killer online. Mm. Now, if you're like me, I love true crime. Okay. I crochet a lot in the winter and I'll pop on a true crime show and I will crochet for hours. Right. And so I love those because I can kind of like try and figure out the mystery, basically. I don't love crime. No, let's not go there. I don't love, death and destruction, not one bit, but I do love a good mystery. And so to me, crime scenes are a mystery. Many, many years ago, I actually wanted to be a police detective. And it was something that I really had considered that I thought, maybe this is something that I should do. I didn't go into that line of work. I went completely a different way, but I still love a good mystery. And so to me, it's always like I'm trying to figure out, who's the main character, okay? Who did it? And, what can we piece together? What are some commonalities? Where are there holes in people's stories? My boyfriend used to joke and say, you could have worked for the FBI because people they can't keep a secret from you. It's like you kind of pierce through their soul and you kind of see through all their bullshit. Well, I'm an empath. So, I can tell right away if somebody's lying. Whether I know you or not, I can usually tell. If there's holes in your story, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to call you out on it because I'm a truth seeker. And so that's something that I feel like when I watch some of these crime docs and things like that, those instincts kick in. And so 9 times out of 10, I really do tend to figure out kind of who did it or whatever before the story is actually solved. So yes, I have been asked a few times actually because I'm a medium and I see things, that other people can't see. I have been asked on a few occasions, if the police ever asked you for help, would you help them? And the answer is yes. But I am not going to just go seek that out and be like, hi, so I'm a medium. Do you want my help? No, it's not how it works. However, if I was ever approached by like detectives or police to help them investigate something, help see if I could, identify somebody or figure out where maybe a person's remains were, things like that. Yes, energetically, I would help them to do those things. Am I prepared to see a crime scene firsthand, like in the physical? No, that's not something that I would ever really want to see. Mad props for all of the hardworking people who that's their daily grind and they have to see those things, first responders, things like that, because I personally can't view images like that or they stick with me, they haunt me. So that's something that I would have to, overcome to deal with things like that. But seeing things in spirit is different than seeing things in the physical. My spirit team does things where they show me stuff without all like the blood and gore so that I just kind of get the facts. So that helps me to be able to navigate things like that. Now, I will tell you a few years back, I was doing a live reading on my TikTok. I was doing mediumship stuff. Total strangers, didn't know them, they didn't know me. And I randomly picked somebody that was just viewing it and gave them a free reading. And one of the things that came through is I was picking up on, I think it was 2 people, a male and a female, and they had both been murdered. And I could physically see the person who had done it. I could see the vehicle that he was driving at the time, and I could describe the area that they were found. That has happened on a few occasions that I've come through with, quite a bit of details that maybe other people didn't know. Now, what was interesting is this person that I was reading for wasn't related to them. They lived in the same town. And so it was public news. It had been, literally all over the news. These people were missing and presumed dead, all that stuff. And the police were really struggling to figure out who had done it. And eventually the case was solved. And all the details that I brought forward were things that this person knew were actual facts about the people that had passed and the person that was responsible. So stranger things have happened. But let's get back to some current events. All right, another news article. At least 12 dead after what? A plane crashes after takeoff in the Caribbean island shortly after takeoff. So 12 people have passed for a plane crashing off a Caribbean island. That's in the New York Post. Again, what's going on? Why are all the planes falling out of the sky? Why are planes crashing shortly after takeoff? Is it a maintenance issue? Do we not have enough people that are like, you know, trained in order to service and maintain our aircraft? It's like, what is going on? I don't know. I just think it's kind of crazy. Here's another one. 8 companies that send people money when they're asked nicely. Wouldn't you like to just receive money? I would. That would be awesome. All right, let's see what else do we have here. Container ship meets pirates. Watch what the captain does next. The pirates, who were prepared for a confrontation, quickly approach the container. There's a little video here. Let's see. I still think it's crazy that, I mean, I get it in other, countries, you're not allowed to own firearms and things like that, but wouldn't it make more sense if the captain of the ship or the personnel on the ship was able to have firearms to protect themselves from pirates? Hello, why don't we send people through training, have them carry some sort of certification, so that they're able to protect themselves from pirates that are trying to steal their cargo? Why don't we have these certain parameters in place? Shit, you'd be better off having a bunch of like water cannons on there to, I don't know, keep them from getting on your ship. Have you guys seen some of these images? I'll look one up real quick. But they put like razor wire and barbed wire and things like that on these ships when they're going through international waters where pirates are a thing, because they're trying to deter the pirates from gaining access to the ship and to the cargo, right? So I've seen like water cannons that are being shot from the ship onto the pirate ship. um, I've even seen crazy things, like one I swear had like a flamethrower or something wild like that. Wild out there stuff. So it's like, pirates are real. Yeah, pirates are a real thing. And they happen to attack certain ships in international waters. Now, clearly, the reason these pirates are doing this is they're hoping to get something that's of value, right? Or to take over the vessel and keep it for themselves. Who knows? But crazy stuff still happening in our world. Another crazy one. Julian Lauren, wife of Weezer bassist Scott Schreiner, was shot after pointing a gun at police. Apparently, they were called there for like a domestic disturbance or something, and she came out. I saw the video, like waving a gun, brandishing a weapon, and so they shot her. And it's like, what is going on? Like, why are these things even happening? Who knows? I feel like the world is losing its damn mind. Another one. California sheriff administered Narcan after smoking seized fentanyl in the station. Fentanyl. So we know it's a problem, especially in the United States. Tons and tons of it are coming across the border. So that's another reason why Trump's trying to like build the wall, and he wants to like eradicate all of this other stuff going on, because it's coming into our country and it's killing a ton of people. So this was a police officer that had apparently smoked some of this fentanyl, and then needed Narcan, which is like a reversal drug. It causes the opiates to not have an effect on the body. It like makes them null and void somehow. And so just crazy stuff. It's like, so he seized it and then he was smoking it and had to have Narcan. So wild. All right, let's see. Tom Brady at 47 found love again, and she looks familiar. Let's see, who is she? I don't know who she is, but she must be an actress or something. Let's see. Maybe you can see, she almost looked a little bit like Jessica Alba there for a second. Oh, and her and Justin Timberlake split up apparently, so she might be single. Maybe it is who Tom's dating. 15 companies that will give you free food and products just for asking. All you have to do is ask them nicely. Wild stuff. There are companies that do that because they want like positive PR and things like that. All right, let's see if there's anything else noteworthy here. Topless protester dressed as Hitler arrested after spray painting swastikas on, let's see, let's click on this one. All right, so they spray painted swastikas on the remains of the Berlin Wall. It says a woman protesting the rise of Germany's populist right wing party was busted for scrawling swastikas while completely topless and looking like Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. The half naked protester was filmed defacing remnants of the Berlin Wall kept outside the German embassy in Ukraine capital Kiev on Sunday with a Hitler mustache and swept over cropped dark hairstyle like the Nazi dictator. Crazy shit's happening all over the world. All right, so we have just a couple more of these to cover, and then we're going to call it for today. So, at least 31 people are dead in Pakistan in the Indian-Pakistan attacks. Alberta's premier proposes referendum on separation from Canada. There is talk that certain parts of Canada, Alberta being one of them, may decide to leave Canada and become the 51st state of the United States. That's something that Trump has proposed. He said, do you want to avoid all the tariffs? Just become, part of America. Problem solved. Then we're all one entity, right? And of course, Canada is like its own country. It's got its own government, all those things. But there are people that want to kind of leave Canada and be part of the United States. So we'll see what happens with that. India fires missiles into Pakistan. We know that's going on. Let's see. We also know that the new pope was chosen. The Navy loses a second fighter jet in the Red Sea in a week. So there's been some fighter jets that have been crashing, leaving the aircraft carriers. So again, is it, mechanical stuff or is it medical stuff that's going on? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Let's see. Top 5 headlines for today. The Trump administration health research cuts a total of $1.8 billion from an analysis fund. Let's see. Britain's farmers welcome no weakening of import standards in a US-UK deal. And the US proposes building new air traffic control towers and radar systems. We're already having issues with the ones we've got. And Apple is developing specialized chips for smart glasses and AI servers. Okay, now I did see a clip on this the other day. Old Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, the CEO, was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I happened to catch a clip of that. And he was talking about within the next 5 or so years, he wants to design some sort of eyewear, like glasses or sunglasses, that have some sort of interface to where you would be able to see things through the lenses of your glasses like you would on a computer. He also wants there to be some sort of link that not only is in the glasses, but that is like internal in the body. And what is it? Elon Musk has, I think it's called Neuralink, where it's an implant that, it's an interface in the human body to where it's connected to everything, connected to the World Wide Web, connected to satellites, technology, all those things. What do you think of that? I personally think it's a little too fucking out there. I would not do anything that's altering my human body with technology. Let's put it that way. I'm not a fan of plastic surgery. I've always said to everybody I know the only way I would get plastic surgery is if it was life or death. Let's say I was in an attack and my face was gone and I had to get it put back together so I looked human again. Okay. Reconstruction after mastectomies, breast cancer, things like that. I might consider it for something like that just so I felt normal again. But implanting technology in the human body and hoping for the best freaks me out. Didn't you guys ever watch fucking Terminator movies? We already have Skynet, right? We already have it. So, there I saw another article, let me find that one, about a robot that was attacking the humans. I want to say it was in China. Let me find it. Found it. All right. So the footage reportedly was shot at an undisclosed Chinese factory, appears to show a robot violently lashing out at workers in a clip that's since gone viral. The security camera video shows a robot which resembles an Unitree H1, initially sitting dormant as it hangs from a crane-like mechanism. So I have the little video here. Let's see if you guys can see it. Maybe if it'll play. Hang on. All right, so you can see the robot is hanging on this crane up here, and then there's two people that are there. And it like just starts freaking out all of a sudden, and it almost comes undone from its harness or its hook, and it's just erratically like swinging around. Do we really want all of this like AI and tech stuff to be hanging out with us, you know? Like, oh, hey, check out my robot over here that's just hanging out on my couch watching TV with me. How do we know that this technology won't revolt? How do we know? Oh, hey, we don't, right? So these are some things that as we advance as a civilization and we have greater technological advancements, we're going to start to see the good and the bad, right? I'm not saying technology is bad. I think technology can be absolutely incredibly useful when it works how it's supposed to. But why is it that there's always some sort of like dark forces that tend to kind of use something that should have been made for good and turn it into something that is total fucking garbage, right? So you got to outweigh the pros and the cons, right? Is it really something that we need, or is it something that we want to do just because we can? So, some food for thought there. Have a wonderful Mother's Day to all of the moms out there that watch my channel. I'm a mom myself. I have 4 of my own and 4 stepkids, and it is sometimes a very thankless, unappreciated job, but it will always be your most important job that you were ever given. So enjoy your day. Hopefully you get to do some rest and relaxation. We work hard enough all year long. So take a day for yourself, give yourself some self-love and self-care, and we'll see you next time. Have a great weekend.